Welcome to 2024 Film East Chats listeners. I'm Shelby Cook, head curator and editor-in-chief at Film East, and today I'm joined by my fellow programmers Neve Brooke, Will Schofield, and Ishnor as we discuss our favorite films from 2023. This episode is part of Film East Online, a space for free online content in varying media to educate, inform, and inspire all things cinema. Film East is a multi-award-winning film organization based in Norwich, UK. Before we get into the episode, Film East Chats is going to have its first hashtag ad. If you're a follower of Film East, you'll know that in addition to these podcasts, we have a whole range of opportunities and activities to encourage and promote cinema to younger audiences. Part of that is our yearly publications. Film East Publishing, a branch of the bigger Film East organization, is dedicated to encouraging up-and-coming voices in film criticism by providing opportunities for emerging journalists and critics to be published. We are very excited that our fourth film criticism anthology is on its way this coming February. Combining the diverse voices of 15 critics, filmmakers, and creatives, Screen Britain journeys through historical and contemporary British visual media to explore national identity through the cinematic lens. This new book's 20 original articles, written in a relaxed style to entertain all types of film fans, analyze over 35 UK-made films and television programs, including classics like Doctor Who and James Bond, as well as modern masterpieces like The Souvenir and Aftersun. Essays range from objectifying the working class in social realist films and the development of the genre's new wave, to the depiction of the British Empire and the portrayal of London immigrant neighborhoods on screen. Also included in this anthology is a curated collection of 16 films and TV shows that takes readers on a road trip around the UK, focusing on work shot or set in regions throughout England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland that are less represented on screen. Screen Britain will be published on the 12th of February, 2024, and will cost £14.99 for paperback and $9.99 for digital download. You can learn more about Screen Britain and pre-order your copy of the book today by visiting our website at film-east.com/screen-britain. Now please enjoy this episode of the Film East crew discussing their favorite films from 2023. Will, do you want to repeat what you just said off the recording and introduce us to this conversation?
Well, the difficulty that we were just kind of talking about is that, especially since most of us are England-based, a lot of the movies of 2023 that are particularly being talked about at the moment haven't actually been officially released here yet. A lot of them are still kind of going out due to largely the Oscars and the timing of that and the release window that requires to give you the best chance of getting an award there. So a lot of the best of 2023 over here is technically part of the 2024 catalogue, and that kind of makes it a bit difficult, particularly in more rural areas. Like where I live, for example, they're still showing Oppenheimer. Like today, I was looking at screenings, and they're showing Oppenheimer today, and that came out like beginning of the year. That was borderline 2022 in some places. So that kind of, I imagine, will colour the discussion a little bit. But
I will say, as someone who does not live, I do live in America, but I do not live in New York or Los Angeles. The film picks are still pretty grim. And I will say that it's a hate crime against me personally as an individual. That none of the cinemas around me are playing All of Us Strangers. So I cannot see Paul Mescal on the big screen. I think that is personally a hate crime that I have yet to see this movie. And I personally find that very offensive.
But no, I mean, yeah, there's so many. There's All of Us Strangers, there's The Holdovers, there's Poor Things is coming out soon. The Boy and the Heron's just come out. Anatomy of a Fall. All these Saltburn is like came out for like 3 days and then immediately went to streaming. There's so many films that are like the talk of the town at the moment, and yet like we still just getting. I've already like booked for 3 weeks away when I'm seeing Poor Things, and even then, that's getting censored apparently in the UK.
What?
Really?
There's a scene that's getting edited and censored because it was too much for the BBFC, and so they're making it get cut down. And I've seen a
Christ,
lot of
what's in it?
um some hanky panky in front of some kids apparently.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't know anything. I've been trying to keep my eyes closed on Poor Things because I love me some Yorgos. I love me
yeah.
some
I was gonna say
marshmallows.
that sounds very Yogos.
Yeah, I've got my favorite. I've got the lobster on VHS that I got for Christmas.
nice.
It's not
Play.
there. Um,
I
so I've been keeping my eyes shut
I
tight.
took my mom to see The Lobster. I had seen like Yorgos's Greek films. And then I think The Lobster was his
Mm.
first English language film. So when it came out, I wanted to go see it in the cinema, and I took my mom to go see The Lobster, and she was so disturbed. I think she still has PTSD from that experience. she and it was just me and my mom, and well, it was these two other older couple. They left in the middle of the movie, and then this random man, like older man, that was sitting in front of me and my mom. And it was only the three of us in the cinema. And afterwards, after the movie, the guy stood up. He was like, "That was a great movie." And my mom was like, "Oh," she was so freaked out by it.
Oh man. Speaking of that kind of people standing up and cheering, the movie that got the best audience reaction for me this year was Godzilla minus one. Did anyone else see
Okay.
that?
No.
No, I've not
That
seen. I've
one.
heard good things about it. I've heard there's a lot of good Godzilla content this year with the Apple show, but no, I have
Oh
not seen
yeah.
Godzilla minus one.
I wanted to bring that one up as part of this discussion because I like Godzilla a lot. I watched a fair few of the Godzilla movies, the Japanese ones in particular, and like I like this one a lot less than a lot of other people did. But I think it really is. If you're curious about Godzilla, it's a really good like introductory film to. I mean, not the idea of Godzilla because he's a big lizard. That's not. It's not much more complicated than that. But kind of the themes and the ideas and the characters. It's a very approachable film. That doesn't go compared to like the last kind of franchise reboot, which is in 2016, Shin Godzilla, which I think is an amazing film, but is very weird and dark and nihilistic. And this feels like a complete other side of the coin to that. And I would just be kicking myself if I didn't include that somewhere in this discussion.
I think I've already spoken about it in our Barbie v Oppenheimer episode, but I genuinely still get a bit emotional when I think about the day I went to go see Barbie
Mm.
because there were people everywhere wearing pink. It was a cinema full of boyfriends that had been dragged along, girls, mums, aunties, there were a couple grandmas. It was so many different generations and genders all went to see this film. Everyone had a great time and everyone got up having genuinely there was a buzz in the air after seeing the film. And Barbie's not one of my top films of the year. I like Barbie. I think it's a good comedy. I don't think it's the masterpiece everyone says it is, but the experience of going to see it, that sort of just fun. It felt like I was at Disney. It felt like it was a ride. It was an incredible experience, and it has to be one of my favorite cinema experiences ever. It was incredible, and I was gutted I didn't wear pink. I felt left out. I made a mistake.
2023 was the year of the girlies going to the cinema.
Yeah.
I will just say Barbie took over, the Eras tour took over, Oppenheimer, the girlies love some bombs.
Hell yeah.
No, I think this year in terms of, I mean, I know this is probably going to be sacrilegious for me to say as a cinema person and someone who works in the exhibition of films. I don't always go to the actual cinema. I don't find that experience of sitting in a cinema with other people the most exciting thing ever. But going to see, like you said, Neve, Barbie, everyone there was just so excited to be there. But more importantly, going to see the Eras tour, like that first weekend that the Eras tour was released, and you're in the cinema, and everyone is just so hyped. All the girls brought like their friendship bracelets to share. I got more friendship bracelets at the cinema than I did at the actual concert.
And so everyone had their little friendship bracelets that they were handing out. Everyone was in their costumes. Everyone was standing up and singing and dancing. And it was just so much fun. And it was just such a great experience. And there was like, everyone was at my screening was very respectful. I know there's been videos of like people were going a little cuckoo crazy at some of the screenings, but everyone was very respectful. Everyone was staying like in their seats, dancing around in their seats. But I went to go see it like a couple weeks later, again with my coworkers, and atmosphere was completely different. No one was excited to be there. Everyone was stiff in their seats. No one was having any fun, and I was like, damn, this is boring. So it was a very good experience seeing the Eras tour in the cinema, and I think that really like showed people like the importance of like the community experience of going to the cinema and how much fun it can be, and sort of that eventizing of the cinema. Whereas I think there is a place for that, obviously, and there's a place for it to be the traditional sit in your seat and watch the film, and be respectful of the fact that you're watching something with other people. But I thought there were some really good like actual cinema experiences this year.
Can I just quickly say a bad cinema experience I had this year? But it was a really weird experience. So I went to go see Jurassic Park for the 30th anniversary this year, which on the big screen is genuinely one of the best films I've ever seen. I've always liked Jurassic Park. Like, I think it's a good film, but in the cinema, it is one of the scariest films I've ever seen in my life. It is incredible. It was made for the big screen, and if you can go see it on the big screen, go see it. Controversially, Jurassic Park's been out for 30 years, and well known, there are some people that love Jurassic Park, and they're typically, you know, Jurassic Park fans. The man next to me when I was singing Jurassic Park was singing the theme tune every time, like loud, not no 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 no. Right, mate, we get it. You've got a Jurassic Park t-shirt on. You've seen the film. You don't need to sing. And other people saying the lines. And I was like, come on, like this is we're not a panto. It was so distracting that it reached a point where I was about to shush. I'm not a shusher, I leave people be, but this arsehole was ruining my vibe and ruining my godlike experience with seeing Jurassic Park in the cinema, and I need this to be a PSA. If you go see a film, if you go see Star Wars, don't sing along. Just keep your mouth shut. That's my bad cinema experience this year. I was furious when I left.
That guy's going to be me in 30 years going to see the anniversary of Oppenheimer and making all the bomb noises.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, here comes the bomb scene.
I had a really bad experience at Wonka, which I went to go see with a friend. I enjoyed the movie. The movie was surprisingly fun. I thought I've never understood the Timothée Chalamet obsession. I always thought he was really boring. He's really charming. He can sing, he can dance, he was really playful. It's by the Paddington people. It was a kid's movie. It wasn't like one of my top 10 of the year, but it was a really enjoyable experience, except for the woman directly in front of us who was on WhatsApp the entire movie with her phone at full brightness. I about halfway through, I tapped her on the shoulder and said, hey, can you put it away? Which, to be fair, she did at that point. Mm-hmm. But I think she clearly went to the cinema with the expectation that, like, it's a place to plonk your kids down for 2 hours and then you can do what you need to do, and didn't kind of recognize it as everyone is there for a reason. And similarly, when I went to see Boy and the Heron, loved that. Absolutely fantastic. Probably one of my favorite Ghiblis. But people went into that seemingly with the belief that it was just a kids movie, and so it was full of like parents with their 5-year-olds, and I don't think there wasn't a moment in the entire movie where the door to the cinema wasn't swinging, because it was constantly just kids walking in and out to go to the toilet and stuff, and like kicking seats and that, which at Wonka I would find that forgivable because it is a kids movie. But A Boy and the Heron, I don't know, it was a 12A, so it's like adult supervision needed. It clearly wasn't for kids. I don't know, it was just weird. That movie was great.
Speaking of Wonka is actually on my top of the year. I said before we started filming this, I've really struggled this year. I mean, I've been to the cinema lots and I've enjoyed a lot of things, but nothing's really like got me in the chest. There's usually one film every year that I'm like, whoa, I love that, and I'm tempted to buy it on DVD. Nothing this year was, but Wonka, as everyone knows at Film East and anyone that listens to this, I love Paddington. I love Paddington, I love Paul King, and I was sort of nervous about Wonka because I'd seen the trailers, and like you said, Timothée Chalamet is quite boring. He's not known for his witty banter, but he was great. He was charming. I loved the music. I wasn't sure if I was going to like the music. I love the music. I've been listening to the soundtrack loads. And what made the film for me is that loads of musicals nowadays are not advertising themselves as musicals at all. My boyfriend didn't know it was a musical. The man next to me, who loudly went to his wife, "Oh Christ, it's a musical," when Timothée Chalamet started singing, made the film for me. That was an incredible experience. But I think it's so lovely. I don't think it's as good as the Paddington films. I think it is a little bit worse. It's not as bright or colourful. It's quite a brown film. I know it's about chocolate, but it's quite brown. But I think it's so charming and fun. I think a lot of films have been either very serious or really dull this year, and I think much like Barbie, it's nice just to have a bit of fun in the cinema. That's what it's all about.
I'm really disappointed that Dune 2 got delayed so that we couldn't have Wonka Timmy next door to Paul Atreides starting a holy war in outer space. Timothée Chalamet.
We did get Wonkpolian though, which is
oh yeah. Oh, okay. Can I quickly talk about Napoleon?
Yeah,
I've got a lot to say about Napoleon.
I will say
okay.
Napoleon, not marketed at all in this country. I didn't even know that movie was coming out.
Oh, it was hit everywhere in the UK.
I had no idea that this was even a movie until like it was released and people online started talking about it. I was like, I have not. What is this?
I remember seeing the trailer for the first time and thinking, "Oh, this looks like right up my street." I love all kinds of films, but deep down, I love a Oppenheimer. I love a There Will Be Blood. I love a dad's movie, you know. And I thought this is one to add to the register. I saw this on my birthday. I hated Napoleon.
Me too.
Solidarity. Let's go. It didn't. I've thought about it a lot, and I think what it boils down to is that it didn't know whether it wanted to be like a romantic dramatization of him as a person, or of a myth, the concept of Napoleon in our modern era, his relationship with Josephine, him as a romantic hero and a tragic figure, or whether it wanted to be a no emotion, objective, historical look at his reign, his rise, his fall, and the battles. And it tries to do both, and it shoves these two completely conflicting narratives in with one another, and it just ends up doing none of it very well. I was just like, the one scene I enjoyed is there's a scene where he's like, he's trying to make a declaration or something, and a bunch of people start rebelling and throwing stuff at him, and he goes and gets the army, and it's a big fight, but it's played almost slapstick. It's him like tripping over himself and making like weird comments and stuff. And that scene was kind of played with a bit of levity, and that was the one scene that I remember thinking that was really good. The rest of it, I don't know. I did not enjoy it. I was very disappointed.
It really screams to me they gave an 80-year-old man who has made some incredible films a lot of money to make a film, and then didn't check in on him. Like, I completely agree with what you said, Will. It doesn't show you enough war for it to be a historical epic, or give you enough information for it to be anything about his life. This film, for context, was my boyfriend's endgame. Like, my boyfriend loves the Napoleonic Wars. He was so, like, this was his movie of the year. He was so excited. And even he was like, I enjoyed it because I have a very thorough understanding of Napoleonic history. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know who the characters were because they don't spend any time introducing them. And my biggest gripe with this film is a gripe that I have with a lot of modern films because people are lazy nowadays. Why is Joaquin Phoenix American?
Yes!
I get that Napoleon was Corsican, but if he's going to do that sort of vibe, make his brother American too. But no, his brother in the film speaks with an English accent, like all the other people in the film, except for Joaquin Phoenix, who mumbles a lot of context that we need to understand, an American accent, and does a very Prince John from Robin Hood-esque when he wants sex. And it was just awful. It was so So rank. It was a waste of 3 hours of my life, and I was furious when I left, as was Jack, my boyfriend, who hated it. Crap.
Everyone I've spoken to have seen it has hated it similarly, and I think that's been like, that's put it as one of my favorites of the year. I think the solidarity that is really kind of enamored amongst people, allowed for, has been
Jack and
really
I now
nice.
regularly say, I led the French victory in Toulon, because for some reason it's hilarious to us that he had to clarify it was the French victory, just in case everyone
Because none
else
of the
didn't get it.
characters
It's
are
just such
speaking in French.
bad dialogue. I led the French
Oh, man.
victory in Toulon. That regularly that comes up in our house. Yes, Napoleon was shit.
Ishnor, do you have any
Yeah. So because I was not in the UK for a long time, I was in India. So my discussion is going to be colored with that. And I had a really good time watching films in India. And I never expected that the Indian films could do that well, because I've always been disappointed with something or the other with the Indian films. But this year, like October especially, was a blast. It was like, what exactly are we doing? We're making like good movies. People are liking it, and they're actually good. Like, they're not bad. They're not just like all jarring big music and just like mindless action and just like defying the laws of physics or whatever. It's not that. It's good story and it's well acted and it's just good direction and everything is beautiful. So for me, that was the highlight, because I was not in the UK for like what, like 3 to 4 months. So I had all my films and everything in India. And one of the bad experiences that, and this I have realized the difference while watching the film in Indian cinema, especially in my home city, which is like a very small city in the north part, not a big city, very small city where like even in this country when the films are released, that city doesn't see a lot of releases. So like very limited films are released there. So I saw that if there was a film with like a lot of mindless action and people are going gaga over it, so every time there was like a hook scene or a step or a music or an action coming, everybody's phones were out and recording it.
Oh.
And like you could see like big screen and like hundreds of small screen just recording it, putting them on their Instagram stories. And then you would listen to that, and then hundreds of Instagram stories going on because they're just checking if it's on or not. So, like, rather than enjoying the film, it was more important for people sitting in that cinema to tell their friends through social media that they're watching this. So that was a bit annoying because that was taking a lot, but I didn't mind it a lot because the film was shit. So when I went, it was like, yeah, because that was interesting. I was like, okay, I don't like the film. This is entertaining or whatever. But I remember because I lived in Mumbai for like 7 years and I would go on to watch films, especially on a weekday in the afternoon when the cinema hall would be empty and I would be the only person sitting there and watching a film. I love that. So I will never go to watch a film during a weekend or whatever because a lot of people eating and talking. I just like find that annoying. That's on me. But I couldn't do that in Amritsar where I was. So yeah, that was pretty annoying. But I've not faced any of that while watching films at Cinema City. People are genuinely like serious about watching things.
Mm.
Yeah, so that is good. But one of the films that so there are many films that I loved, but one of the films that I loved, which was supposed to be an Oscar nomination, but which is not, is called 12th Fail. I don't know if you've heard of it, seen
I
it,
think so.
no? Okay. I'm especially biased about this film is because one of my very close friend has acted in it. So I
Oh.
just went to like, hey, I'm cheering for you, but the film was good. So even though I would not have like been biased just because even if my friend was not in it, I would have still liked the film. So it's this film is basically about so there are like civil service exams which happen in India for which you have to like you have to have 3 steps and you have to work really hard and you have to study, and you have to like put your career online, blah blah blah, all of that. Like you have to take a break from career for like 1 or 2 years and clear that exam or whatever. So it's a very highly competitive exam. So there is this small village in India, and there is this boy who is very used to getting cheating done in the schools. Every time there is an exam, somebody would come and write the answers on the boards, and then that's how he would pass. And then one fine day he's in a problem and he sees like a very uh, honest police officer, and he decides to be a police officer. Without knowing anything, he goes away from his city, and it's based on a true story. And it's beautiful. It basically, I'm not going to give out the plot or anything. It's just basically a pure rags to riches, beautiful story in which this person has struggled a lot, met a lot of bad people, and has found kindness in strangers and has finally cleared the exam. And this is on a real story, which makes it even more special. So that was one of my favorite films, and I wish it was nominated for Oscars because it's really good. It was really, really good. So yeah, I loved it. And while I was watching 12th Fail, I decided to choose a seat where I cannot see anyone. So very close to the stairs, very close to the door, so that my experience is not tainted by people taking out the screens and just recording things. So yeah, 12th Fail was my pick of the year. One of the picks of the year. There are other two, which I'll come to later. And one of them is a British film, so it's not all Indian.
Can I share a weird one that's actually well and truly one of my favorite films of the year?
Of course.
Please.
The Hunger Games. Ballad
Okay,
of the Space.
I was gonna put this on my list of one to mention. I have not seen this film yet, but it has been all over my TikTok that I'm like, I need to see this movie. The way these people are talking about this movie and like just the clips that I've seen of it, I'm like, this movie looks fire. This movie looks so good.
For context, I was a huge Hunger Games fan
Yeah,
a
me too.
decade ago. Like, I had the Mockingjay pin. I loved it. I have not watched or read or touched the Hunger Games since the last one came out, and I was just like, okay, that's done. Don't need to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But I saw this. I didn't read the book when it came out because I'm an adult, and I was like, I don't really need to read the Hunger Games anymore. But then I saw the trailers, and I was like, oh, this looks kind of good. And I'm a Rachel Zegler fan. I know a lot of people aren't. I like her. I think she's good and nice. Good, I like her story. I like Rachel Zegler, and I like Hunter Schafer, who was Tigress, and I was like, I'm gonna go see it. And my partner was like, yeah, I'm down to go see this. It was amazing. It's context, it's 60 years before the Hunger Games that we know, but seeing this world, this futuristic world 60 years before we knew it, so it's like 1950s tech but still really futuristic. It's really interesting, like learning about the context of the Hunger Games and how that's evolved. The love, like, there's Tom Blythe as President, young Snow as Corio, which was quite hard to stomach sometimes. Sometimes they say choreo in the film, but it was really good. It's split into 3 parts. The last part was a little short for a 2.5-hour film. It still feels quite rushed, but I really liked it. It was brutal and kind of savage in places. Viola Davis stole every scene she was in. It was really, and the music slaps. Like, the music's really good. For anyone, even if you're not a Hunger Games fan, because quite humbling, a girl who couldn't be more than 11 came to see it, and I was like, you probably weren't born when I was watching these in the cinema.
Fake fans are.
Oh, I was like, you're not going to know
Fake fans.
the 4 films worth of context that makes this interesting. But also, my colleague, who's in his 50s, really enjoyed this film. He went, did you go see the Hunger Games? And I said, yes, I did. It was great. So it's for everyone. It's an amazing film. You don't need to know all the subplot. You can enjoy it as is, or if you do know it, it's far more interesting. And I want there to be a sequel. I'm back on the Hunger Games train. It's fab.
I rewatched all the Hunger Game movies in December, and I saw the first 2 movies when they came out, and I was a massive Hunger Games fan when the books came out, and I don't know, I just like fell off of them before the last 2 movies came out, and I watched Mockingjay, the 2 Mockingjay movies for the first time. They were terrible. So bad. And the entire first part of Mockingjay is just Katniss just saying, where's Peeta? Where's Peeta? And I was like, if I have to listen to this bitch talk about Peeta one more time, I'm gonna kill myself. I was like, I cannot. This is the worst movie I've ever seen.
I actually attribute the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. So, you know, when you're a kid and every film is just good, you think, oh, that was good. I attribute 3 films from that sort of era. It was Jurassic World Part 1, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and a film called If I Stay with Chloe Grace Moretz. Those were the first. So bad.
Is that when she's like a ghost?
Yeah, that was when she was like choosing if she stayed alive, and it was all. It was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I read that book in like freshman year in high school.
But those 3 films, I think it was 2014, 2015. I was like, I'm not enjoying this. Like, what's wrong with this film that I actively would like to leave? And I attribute those 3 films that made me, 1, interested in film, and 2, start doing this, because I had so many opinions. All my friends were like, wasn't that good? And I was like, no, that was dog shite. We need to talk about why that was bad. So yes, we should do an If I Stay episode, because that has just unlocked a huge part of my.
If I Stay. It was the If I Stay. Oh my God, this is like, obviously, I don't know why people didn't think I didn't have depression, because these are the books I was reading. The If I Stay, the one with Kristen Stewart in the movie before she was in Twilight, and the movie is like this girl gets raped or something, and it's like her whole. Yeah. Oh my God, like these are the books I was like obsessed with when I was in high school. Anyways, back to 2023. I think the 2 movies that I really enjoyed, and I just watched them this past week because I have been a really bad film fan this year and I have not watched any current movies. Past Lives, with Celine Song. I thought that was it was a very I didn't have the emotional impact of it that I think a lot of other people had, but I've also haven't had, I think from my own personal experience, I couldn't relate to it as much as I think other people could have, but it did make me reflect on like some of my past like relationships that I've had, like not with friends and people that I've known in my life. And what if they did return back into my life 20 years later? Some of them I got quite upset about, thinking like, oh my God, if I ever saw that person again, bad things would happen. But I thought it was a very beautiful film. It was a very nice study on connection and human relationships. And I think it's a very beautiful film if you haven't watched it. It's definitely worth watching. I think it's a quieter film. It doesn't stand up to a lot of like the bigger hits from the big directors that came out this year. But I'm glad to see that it didn't get lost, because it was a film that came out, I think, in like March. So I'm glad it didn't get lost in the, in the awards shuffle. It's still being talked about. And Asteroid City. I really liked Asteroid City.
I was about to bring that one up because I loved that one.
That was also on my list.
I would say I haven't seen all of Wes Anderson's filmography. I don't know a lot about Wes Anderson films other than that they're pretty. But I will say, I feel like a lot of times with his more modern films, it's a lot of style over substance. And a lot of his films are just meant to be pretty, and they're like fun, and they're very simple plots. Whereas the first time I watched The Royal Tenenbaums, I was like, oh my God, this is like really deep. Like this has a lot of like emotional umph to it. And I felt that coming back to Asteroid City. I felt like the plot was very intricate and very interesting, and it had a lot of like commentary and a lot to say, while still having that Wes Anderson style and the funness of a Wes Anderson film. And I thought that alien scene when the alien comes and takes the asteroid, that was so good. That was so fun. Yeah. The alien was so goofy. The like just seeing those like wide shots of the audience just like staring at the alien was so funny. I just thought that I loved that film. I just thought it was so fun, and I think it's my like favorite Wes Anderson film that I've seen.
That's really interesting, because I think it is also my favorite, but I have like an entirely opposite perspective of his career. I've seen all of them except for Bottle Rocket now, I think.
Oh, Bottle Rocket's on Moonbee, just to let you know.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That might be something. I was looking for something to watch later. But no, I gelled a lot less with his early works, where it is a very much more story driven. About a specific character, kind of following beginning to end. and then his more recent ones that have become more odd or anthological. Is that a word?
Mhm.
Like French Dispatch, I really like, and of course Grand Budapest
Yeah.
Hotel is fantastic. It feels like to me his style has reached a point where the filmmaking, the visuals of it are almost so far out there that they're not really a concern anymore. They're
Mm.
past the point of which it is just style for style's sake. It's, I don't know, I'm struggling to describe it, but I really, really enjoy his focus recently more on themes and kind of general ideas and communicating concepts over a more standard A to B, beginning to end kind of narrative following these characters to a conclusion. And I feel like to me, Asteroid City was really kind of the culmination of everything that's come before, and I'm really excited for where it goes next, what the next work is. I haven't seen the Netflix ones, actually, thinking about it.
I haven't seen those either.
I'm still scratching my head over you can't fall asleep if you don't wake up, you can't fall asleep if you don't. I'm like, I think I get it, I think, but do I? Like, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of meaning, and it's all about like pandemic and being shut in and having control of their characters, but also having control of your own autonomy. That bit stumped me. That bit got me, but I loved it. I think it's Wes Anderson at his best. I think it's silly. Another black and white color shifting film similar to Oppenheimer, with a lot of those.
And I was thinking, I was like, wow, there's so many correlations here. Like the bombs were going off, and I was like, oh, like Oppenheimer. There was something else too that reminded me of another movie that came out. Oh,
Barbie was there, just like in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Yes, and the Western of like Killer of the Flower Moons.
I was
like, man, Wes Anderson was predicting what was coming out.
No, I thought it was great. I love Wes Anderson. I'll always like whatever Wes Anderson puts out because they're kooky and silly and pretty. But yeah, it was fun and made you think and light. I think there's been a lot of heavy stuff. It's either been, I think after COVID and everyone sort of felt like they had to really prove themselves and tell dramatic stories, but it's nice just to have a bit of fun.
But I think it was, what I really enjoyed about it was that it was light on the surface, but it did have it was like touching on a lot of like heavy themes, like about art and how art is made, and connecting with people and the otherness of being different in a world, with these intelligent kids, and how isolated they felt from their world. It did have really heavy themes, but he paired it well with, it was so light on the surface and so pretty that it didn't feel super like bogged down.
And I was kind of spooked by the alien. Sorry, the alien kind of spooked me out. But I thought he
was so cute.
I loved him. He was adorable.
He was cute, but I'm a real scaredy cat. And I didn't like the way it was looking at me, and I
did, yeah. When it's like leg came out, I was like, "Oh, is that?"
I don't like
you're talking like one of the characters in the film.
Oh my god!
The way he stared at me with those big eyes of his.
I've got a big thing with. I love Doctor Who, love all that stuff, but Alien. I found out that's what gets me when I watch Nope. I've never been so frightened in my life, and that similar with Asteroid City. Unless I know what the alien's going to look like, I lose my mind. I don't like it.
I watched Close Encounters for the first time the other night too. And when the mother alien comes out of the spaceship, I was like, oh my god, what is that? I was so scared. And then of course, like the little alien people who look like, the stereotypical aliens. I was like, oh, okay, they're fine. I was not expecting this like spider thing to come out. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. There's another movie that I really like. I mean, but it's funny because while I was watching it, I didn't like it that much. But when it stopped and I heard like the Q&A with the director, I sort of liked it a lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it was Raging Grace. Have you all like heard of it? Or like it's a British film?
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, so it was screened at Norwich Film Festival. So I was there, and it's basically about a Filipino immigrant, and her daughter is born in the UK, so she's not an immigrant, but she's born to an immigrant. So she's like very much English, but with Filipino roots.
Mm.
So she's very confused. And now this immigrant goes and works as a house help in one big mansion, and they've always had Filipino immigrants come and work for them. So this movie is just basically about the immigrant experience, about how this little girl of like merely of 10 years of age is just taking it on with being British, but having these roots, and how they're all navigating their life, and how even like the well-meaning people want the immigrants to behave in a certain manner and
Mm.
not just like be independent or not to behave basically out of order. So it's basically a story about that. So while I was watching it, it was just like very, it was a very uncomfortable watch. I felt like something's crawling on my skin, and I was like, oh no, I'm not comfortable with it. But then after the movie got over, I sort of like, it's like, okay, no, this is a good movie because this is basically bringing out everything, the rage that, because the director himself is Filipino and is born to the immigrants, and it's basically partly the story of his mother. So he's
Mm.
taken a lot of things from the life of his mother and then brought in his immigrant experience, added it all. So it's basically looked like a good concoction of different experiences, and I was not able to understand which to take, which to leave, how to feel, what to do with it. But after like some time, I was like, okay, I understand the confusion because that's my same experience as well. So I
Yeah.
understand the confusion that's
Mhm.
happening in the film. So I relate to it. Something very interesting happened during that Q&A was that there was this white man who basically told the director that this is your personal passion, Vanity Fair project. How do you feel about it? Do you feel cathartic about it? And that just sort of like brought out like a different discussion that like talking about these things is not cathartic. It's just like telling people that this is real and everything. So I I think this movie is good. I think you should all watch it. I mean, even if you don't like it, but I think it's important to watch. So that was good experience. And I also like something that I love when this person asked a question which was completely uncomfortable for the director. Everybody in the hall started asking and started praising the director to make him feel comfortable because he was visibly uncomfortable about it.
Mm.
So everybody started asking and praising him about how great this movie is and what's a great impact that that movie has. And that I loved that. I loved to see that in Cinema City in Norwich. Beautiful, beautiful moment. So I think because of my entire experience, I love this movie because I could relate to the director. I could relate to the confusion. I would like it. I don't know if you all will like it, but just give it a watch.
Hmm.
What was
Yeah.
it called again? Sorry.
Raging Race.
Okay. I went to see at the beginning of the year a Q&A with Ennie's Main, the film, which is technically a 2022 film, but it came out January 2023 here. And it was a very similar experience. It was a really interesting film. It was made by the guy who did Bait, if anyone saw that in like
Yeah.
2020. And it's very artsy. I'm loath to say Lynchian, but it was fairly Lynchian. Um, about a woman kind of who is on a tiny little rock off the coast of Wales. He gets like one visitor a month, and she's like researching, I think like weeds, a type of weed that grows on the island, and just kind of her isolation and stuff. It was very similar to, it was like The Lighthouse. It was made by David Lynch, but that was an interesting kind of Q&A experience with the director because
Mm.
he was similarly clearly very uncomfortable talking. But it was really weird how whenever like any question was asked, like how did you do this, why did you do this, what did this film, what did this part mean, his response would always be, I don't really know. Like we were there on the day, we hadn't really planned it out, so we just kind of filmed whatever was nearby. They're like, what's the symbolism of her having like a yellow jacket and like him having yellow pants, and he was like, oh, I didn't even notice that. And just like
That's
stuff like that.
that's why artists need critics, because critics make purpose or make reason for artist work, because artists are just like, well, I don't know, I just did it. And I work in the arts industry outside of this, and I work with artists all day, and it's just, and I like for the gallery where I work, I produce artist interviews, and I ask the artists these type of questions, and they're just like, I don't know, I just do it. And they're just like, give me something, please. Like, I'm trying to sell your work here, give me something. And so you just have to like make this stuff up. And that's why, there's always this conflict between the artist and the critic, and everyone's like, critics suck because they're, critiquing our work. But you need critics to give meaning to what you're making and to make people want to enjoy your art.
I
Yeah.
have
That was a that was a little bit of a rant.
I have one final film on my list that of favorite films of the year, and it's quite similar to the sort of the rage theme that we've just sort of developed. It's less rageful, more a commentary, but it was a film called Alleluia, which came out of the.
Oh, I hated that movie.
You hated it?
I hated it. I saw it
Ooh.
at TIFF.
Oh, I really liked it.
I hated it.
Maybe it's because I'm just so staunchly anti-Tory, but it's a film about the pressures of the NHS that they are facing, and end of life care, and what pressures can do to a person, and how this lack of empathy towards human beings and those that work caring for human beings can do to a human being. It was uncomfortable, blunt, quite distressing. If it's about old people and the beauty that comes with that, and also the horrors that comes with that, and what can happen. And as someone, my nan passed away with dementia, and it rung true a lot of things. And I think it's honest, it's bleak, and the end, it gives up any pretenses, speaks directly to the camera and says, do something, the NHS is crumbling. And if that's not what art is for, if it's not polemic and telling the world through like a story, then I don't know what else. I loved Alleluia. It's horrible to watch, there's a big twist, and yeah, I really liked it. Shelby, you're just wrong.
I think the issue I had with it was more so like the technical. I'm looking back at, I put if you would like to check out Film East's Instagram at films_east, I have a review of it from when I was at the Toronto Film Festival. And it looks like the issue that I had more with it was like the technical aspects of it. I don't think I had an issue with the plot. It was more of like voiceovers and fourth wall breaks, and it felt very incoherent. And it could have, because it's been such a long time, it could have changed too since then. Like they could have had because I think the screening that I saw was the first public screening of it, so they could have changed a lot of the things.
It does really, it's not the most beautiful film you'll ever see. I completely agree. Technically, it does kind of give BBC, 3-part
Alan Bennett. It's an
Alan Bennett film. But I sometimes feel like if the story is that good, or like if it's that important, I don't mind if that if it's a bit basic, because it's not a huge big budget film. It's it's a cheap film trying to tell an important message. So I get where you're coming from. It was it was cheaply made, you can tell, but no, I still loved it.
Should I gun through my last few that I've gotten, because I kept thinking of more and more as we were talking.
Go for it.
So if anyone has anything to say about any of these, then please. I mean, Killers of the Flower Moon, I really liked. Well, I thought it was good.
I don't know. I liked it. I just have a hard time. I don't know. I just have a hard time like connecting with Martin Scorsese's films, and I guess it's because I'm not a man or a gangster, so I just I guess I just don't connect with his films. But I liked it. Yeah, it was good.
I haven't brought myself to watch it yet. It's 3 hours long. Like you say, I'm not a big Scorsese head. I will watch it at some point, but yeah.
Same.
I like a lot of his stuff. Some of it I find a lot more hit and miss. This one's not gangster at all, I'd argue, but it's very slow. It's long and it's slow, and that's kind of part of the point. But you feel time creeping up on you. I mean, Theatre Camp was great fun. Did anyone see that?
I liked Theatre Camp. I watched it the other day. That is fun. That's a good
It's
film.
really good. That's on Disney Plus. May December, absolutely fantastic. That was one of my favorites so far.
When I saw that movie was nominated for Best Comedy at the Golden Globes, I
Yeah.
died. I thought that was hilarious. Like, why would they put that in the Best Comedy category? And I was like, that is so funny.
That movie made me like, it's the movie of the year that made me put my head in my hands the most and go, oh God.
When she opens the fridge in the most dramatic way, and she's like, I just don't know if we're gonna have enough hot dogs.
That's the thing. That's like the joke in the movie. The movie has one joke in it, and they're like, "All right, that's enough comedy, sure."
I could just imagine like the Golden Globe voters being like, "Oh yeah, this is a comedy."
Oh, but that's fantastic. The ending. I've been thinking about the ending for weeks. It was like a real punch to the gut. And I guess my last one is Skinamarink, which I've mentioned before. Insanely, not in this thing. I've mentioned another film. Insanely good horror film. Really, really low budget, made by an indie director that toured a few tiny festivals and through word of mouth has completely blown up. One of the best one of the most interesting horror films in years. Deserves all of the accolades that Talk to Me has got, because Talk to Me I thought sucked. But yeah, that might be my film of the year actually, just based purely on coming away from it and being like, wow, that was something like I've not seen before. Also Oppenheimer. I gotta say it officially. Gotta tick that box.
That was a Schockenheimer.
Anyone who knows the lore of Filmies knows I got real beef with Emerald Fennell and her film Promising Young Woman. I really hated that movie. I didn't detest Saltburn. I thought it was kooky. It was weird. But a lot of the people on Twitter now are saying Emerald Fennell, director, is too good of a director to be working with Emerald Fennell, writer. And that's exactly how I feel about Promising Young Woman. It was a good movie. It was directed well, but the writing is terrible. And the writing in Saltburn is a little questionable as well. It's not as bad, in my personal opinion, as Promising Young Woman. But again, she's a very stylish director. She has definitely the eye and the creative vision of putting a good film together and being able to direct it really well, but she needs to work with some other writers.
I thought Saltburn was great. I had a lot of fun. For a film that I thought was going to be really wanky, you know, it's Jacob Elordi. I thought it was going to be quite slow and whispery, but it was fun. It's camp. In a lot of places, it's really potent. It can be quite strong. What's bothered me the most about Saltburn, and I told my colleagues this the other day in the office, how did they make Barry Keoghan look 20 years older by brushing his hair? I can't work out how they did it. It's blown my mind.
And that scene of him just like on his laptop, just like typing random things on his computer, that was so iconic.
It was so good. I think that it's shocking for like the thrill factor. Some of it doesn't really make any sense, but it was good. I really enjoyed it.
I just want to talk about one last movie that I saw. It was a Netflix movie that I saw on 27th of December, which I was thinking that, oh, it could be a Christmas movie or something, but no, it was a New Year movie, sort of a thing. Again, an Indian movie. It's basically a movie about how we use social media every day and how fake it is and what happens. And it's not like something drastic is happening. Very relatable stuff, very relatable stalking, very relatable understanding stalking people that you think are with your people, and then just finding connections with it. I don't do this, but like coming home from work, dressing up in a beautiful thing, taking pictures just for the sake of it, and all of that. So, and it's basically a friendship movie. It's called Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, like Where Are We Lost? And it's about three friends navigating their life, enjoying their time, but also doing all of these things. And it's really nice because it was not preachy, and it really made me think that I need to use less social media because I use it a lot. I lost my phone in India for like few days, and the only thing I missed was social media. not the ability to not contact anybody, but I felt paralyzed that I don't have my Instagram with me. What's happening? So I could like see that, okay, I'm using it a bit much, but I'm not doing these things, but I still am using it. So I loved the movie. It was like light, easy, breezy, coming up with like also like woven sort of a message, but not a preachy message. So I think it's a light watch if you want to watch it.
Mm.
Yeah. Mostly the characters speak in English, so you won't have an issue, but have the subtitles on.
My one that I really, really loved, but I don't think it's as good as the first one, hence why it wasn't on my top of the year, was Spider-Man Cross the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I really loved it. I love the first one. The first one is like a biblical experience for me. Every time I watch it, it is just jaw-dropping. This one, again, equally as beautiful. I love, again, the new art styles and some of the new characters. But I don't know if it's just because the first one was so revolutionary and such a concise story about Miles, that because this one's a two-parter, it's setting up another film. I feel like there isn't as a precise arc and like narrative. It feels like I'm still waiting for the second half of the film. So that's why it's not on my top of the list, but God, is it gorgeous. It's so beautiful. I love those films, although kind of iffy with the some of the messages from like people who worked on the film and but still gorgeous. Their hard work paid off, and hopefully when we get beyond the Spider-Verse at some point, I'll be able to love that film a little bit more because I will know the whole story.
In 10 years' time when that comes out.
Yes, that little boy who did the Lego will be graduating uni.
And that's a wrap on our 2023 favorite film conversation. To learn more about Film East and our upcoming events, our film criticism publications, and our unique activities, you can visit our website at film-east.com or follow us on any of our social media at films_east, and that's films with an S _east. And make sure you're subscribed to Film East Chats anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube, so you never miss one of our deep dives into films and TV shows. And don't forget, pre-orders are now open for our new film criticism book, Screen Britain, on our website at film-east.com/screen-britain. I've been Shelby Cook, your head curator and editor-in-chief at Film East, a Norwich-based film organization. You'll hear from us all soon. Bye!